underage drinking, but not driving. So it's not DUI, moving traffic violations. The 16-year-old is released to the parents' custody. The 18-year-old is suspended from school, and graduation is looming. What recourse does she have? Presumably, she's not going to be able to prance across the stage with her classmates and get her high school diploma. I'm sure that they can't deny her that diploma, but she can't participate in the functions. Is that something that's reasonable? How does that play out? Should she see a lawyer? What do they do? It's complicated, I guess.
It is
there are several different factors in play
Right.
there. So how would you like to address that?
Well,
But yeah, she should probably go to an attorney
Right.
because she's not being denied her right to graduate with her class, not to receive her diploma.
So let's take it, I'd say break it down one step at a time. The first step is, was it a school event or not a school event?
It's the prom.
Yeah.
Right. This was before she got to the prom, as
This
I
was
understand.
after the prom.
After the prom.
But you know, they also have tied in now these
After-prom
post-proms.
parties.
And if
Okay.
you're not there, you're square, but you could also be arrested if you had been drinking, as
All right.
this
So
group had been.
I'd say step one in the analysis of what her rights are is whether or not it's a school event. If we determine and we agree it's a school event, then the school would have jurisdiction over what behavior is expected of their students. The second question would be a due process question. What hearing did they give her? What right did she have to present evidence as to whether or not she was in fact guilty of what she's being charged with? And what right did she have to present that evidence and to whom, and how timely is a hearing being given to her? The third thing is, in order to invoke due process, what right is being denied to her? And what you're suggesting is it's the right to attend and be part of her graduating class, which I do think might be a fundamentally protected right, perhaps a property right if she's attained all of the qualifications necessary to graduate.
Yes, that wasn't in question at the time. But if there is a party bus and there is open liquor bottles that a policeman finds, without giving each one a breathalyzer, or even if he did, does that mean that everyone on the bus is absolutely underage drinking? Maybe several weren't.
How do you know? It's
that?
like the marijuana question. If it was in the ashtray and you have 3 people in the car
Right.
who's
But in this
marijuana
case,
was
that's
it.
why she's entitled to a hearing.
Exactly.
Because if
And a
she-
lawyer's necessary to flesh that out,
A
probably.
lawyer's a good idea. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of evidentiary issues that would need to be addressed, and certainly what her rights are and protecting those rights is something a lawyer would be in a better position to deal with for her.
And the 16-year-old who is released to her parents' care, is she likely to, she wasn't suspended, does that seem fair?
Depends on what they charged her with. I mean, did they give her a breathalyzer? Was she in public intoxication? Was she outside the bus on a public street? Just depends on what.
There's a lot of factual
yeah.
issues
Okay,
that would have to
and
be
not
dealt
everything
with.
was given to
Yeah.
us here,
Right.
but if there isn't a formal charge against the 16-year-old, she doesn't need a lawyer, she just
Well, if
has
she's
to
being
mind
charged
her own
with a
business.
crime,
If there's a crime.
she's going to go straight to family or
Right,
juvenile
yeah,
court.
yeah. And
So-
family court has some screening programs.
Especially
but
with
you really want
drinking, underage
Exactly.
drinking. It's
Yeah.
been very strict lately.
And they're not going to see you in the traffic court or in a municipal court then, right?
No,
Not for
No,
a
not
drinking
because they're not
charge.
driving. Yeah, and
We
it's
would
not-
have jurisdiction over an adult who is charged with an open container of alcohol,
Yeah.
for example. Any city or town ordinance is subject to jurisdiction of the municipal court. Zoning, disorderly conducts, those types of things.
Which will be discussed next. Actually, this is probably a good time to start. We did say we were going to discuss some of the municipal court issues, and disorderly conduct is certainly one of them. I think before we started this segment, I mentioned, is it as a restraining order? Is that something that's considered a municipal court? It's something in someone's town, and that person did a bad thing, and he's my neighbor. Can you keep, is that your...
That is not our jurisdiction.
Not your
If it's a
jurisdiction.
restraining
No.
order to keep a neighbor from bothering you or someone.
husband and wife,
Well,
that's
husband and
family.
wife is
Right.
domestic, so
Okay.
you'd have,
Right.
anytime there's some type of family relationship, a romantic relationship, then jurisdiction is family court.
Yeah, or
Although you can
possibly
go to
district
district
court.
court for no contact order, exactly.
Right.
But
No
if you're trying,
contact. That's
It's
not
a
restraining.
restraining
it's a
order.
restraining
It is.
order. But if you're trying to get your neighbor to stop harassing you, then your jurisdiction is Superior Court.
Right. Now, depending factually on what the issues are.
Exactly,
If
yeah.
the problem, for example, is a dog issue, and my neighbor's dog is constantly off the property and on my property and howling and a nuisance, there might be jurisdiction in municipal court over the dog issue.
Unleashed dog?
Yeah.
Or it could be an unlicensed dog?
Right.
Yeah.
All of those issues can be resolved in municipal
Disturbing the
court.
peace.
And when I get those cases, I'm not simply going to institute the $25 fine and say, don't do it again. I want to bring all the people in and say, what is the issue here? How wide-ranging is it? How long has it been going on? And can we resolve the issue between the court and the neighbors rather than having a $25 fine every other month and, it serves no purpose?
And not solving the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah. And usually if it involves an animal, all the time, if it involves an animal, we have animal control that handles
Right.
that. Not
Yeah.
Division of the police
And our
department.
animal control officer in East Greenwich will bring charges in, but he can't resolve the problem between the neighbors. That's why the municipal court, I believe, is the best way to do that, is to bring the people together. That's different than the neighbors harassing me, which, as Jackie says, that's a Superior Court issue.
Speaking to you both now as municipal court judges, someone is before you and there's an issue. What factors weigh in on your judgment? Obviously, there's a body of law that says this is illegal, this is legal. There's a fine imposed for this and that. What kind of factors? You bring up a good question about bringing other people to the table. What kinds of things factor into someone's case when they're before a municipal court judge?
It goes back to what David said before, their right to due process. They have a right to present evidence, to testify. They have a right to present witnesses.
Right.
They have a right to cross-examine any witness that's testifying against them. It's a due process issue. You have to make sure they have the
Right.
due process rights.
And then as the judges, we weigh the evidence.
That's right.
And determine whether or not the town, which does have the burden of proof, has met that burden of proof. It's not a criminal case, so the burden of proof isn't beyond a reasonable doubt. It's either clear and convincing evidence or preponderance of the evidence, depending on the charge. And just by way of example, a dog case, we have a law that says if your dog poops, you have to pick it up. We call it the pooper-scooper law.
There is a bona fide
Right.
law on the books.
Oh,
about-
there is,
Right.
yeah.
So
Residents beware.
we had a case where the town charged the person with letting their dog out of the yard without a leash, which is a violation of the leash law, and additionally that the dog had messed up on the neighbor's lawn. So the testimony came in. I'm listening to the testimony very carefully. The dog owner says that the dog had gotten out of the yard, and when she was notified by the neighbor, she went back and she got the dog and brought it home. The neighbor testified, this happens all the time. The dog's always out of the yard, always on my lawn, and I saw the dog there, and the dog messed in my yard. So I went back, and the police report had come in into evidence. I read the police report before I made my decision. The police report was very different. Actually, the police report said the neighbor saw the dog in the yard, and the next day found the mess in her yard.
Yeah.
So I said to the dog officer, did you do DNA testing? How can we match the
Could be
mess to
another
the
dog.
Could have been an intervening dog.
That's correct.
Superseding cause.
Yeah.
So I did convict her based on the testimony of the dog being out of the yard without a leash. That she
That's
admitted to.
indisputable. That's
Right.
subjective reality.
But there was no clear and convincing evidence that could connect the dog to the rest of the case.
Now, for speeding tickets, we have, as David said before, we have some case law that says if somebody's going to come before you for a speeding ticket, this is what the town or the police department has to prove. If it's a radar case and there's a radar gun, then it's up to the police department. They have the burden of proof to show that they were actually trained in
Right.
using that gun, that they're certified, that the radar gun was tested for accuracy. They have to do it before their shift, after the shift. If they don't get that information into the record, they haven't proven their case.
Well, suppose I wanted to challenge it and just say it's arbitrary and capricious, and that was not my speeding. That was somebody else's who was in the same lane, not in the lane, or whatever my
We
defense
get those
is.
defenses
We
all
have
the
I'll
that
time.
bet
all
you
the
do.
time,
That's
yeah.
why we're asking.
And frankly, they don't fly.
They don't fly.
Because it's you can call it arbitrary and capricious. Some people call it selective prosecution. Whatever you want to call it. If you're violating the law, you're violating the law, and it doesn't matter if they got you and not the driver in front of you or behind you. What Jackie is saying is a legitimate defense, is if the officer comes in, he has certain things he has to meet in order to sustain the verdict that he's looking for, one of which is that, and Rhode Island's a little strange in this one, the Supreme Court has said that the radar unit has to have been